You're listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more, visit lifeinquebec.com.
Hi, I'm Rosanna Haratunian. The article I'm about to read, Quebec Sugar Shack Bois de Collonges, was written by Sarah Williams. It was first published in the spring 2013 edition of Life in Quebec magazine. So here it is. It's an important cultural icon in Quebec which is not completely foreign to me. Growing up in Ontario, however, we refer to it as the Sugar Shack and not the Cabane à Sucre. Besides the language difference, though, there are a lot of similarities between the Sugar Shack of Ontario and the Cabane à Sucre of Quebec. Typically, they are small, rustic cabins located in a forest composed primarily of sugar maples. The traditional method for harvesting the eau d'érable, or raw sap, from these trees is also essentially the same. Spigots made of wood or metal are hammered into the tree, and then buckets are hung from these taps to catch the dripping sap. It used to be that the sap was collected by a horse-drawn sleigh and reservoir, and then brought back to the shack to be boiled down to syrup. These days, however, the whole process has been modernized for more efficiency. Now many producers are equipped with a network of plastic hoses that collect the sap so that it drips directly to the evaporating house. This and snowmobiles have rendered the horse and sleigh obsolete. The production of maple syrup has become a big business, especially in Quebec. A fact made infinitely clear by the kerfuffle that followed the Great Syrup Heist of 2012. According to the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers, this province is responsible for 70 to 80% of the world's maple syrup production and is also home to the Global Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve. In 2012, the public became aware of just how large a stockpile the Strategic Reserve holds, when it was reported that thieves had absconded with around 10 million pounds of liquid gold from a warehouse in Saint-Louis de Blanford, a cache representing a market value of $30 million. Suddenly, there was talk of a maple syrup shortage, and fear that prices would skyrocket. I know I considered stocking up on a few extra cans, just in case the culprits were never found. Yes, indeed, big business. However, it's not merely for economic reasons that the production of maple syrup holds such an important place in the Quebec psyche. There are cultural reasons as well. We can see it represented in the folk art, a horse-drawn sleigh being pulled through the forest, a sea of metal buckets hanging on trees, and a little cabin in the woods with a plume of smoke rising from the chimney. These are all the perennial images which are carved into the wood, painted onto plates, and looped into tapestries by Quebecois artisans. It's an enduring symbol of both Quebec's past and present. When spring approaches, many Quebecers flock to the Cabane à Sucre of their choice. As the concept has been exploited extensively for tourism purposes, there are plenty out there that are more commercial in nature. However, it is usually these touristy ones that have traditional Quebec reels playing in the background and offer up a hearty meal including a feast of eggs, sausages, crepes, and perhaps even some oreilles de crise, a typical Quebecois dish made of deep-fried pork jowls, all intended to be drowned in a substantial portion of maple syrup. If you're a tried and true urbanite and a trek into the woods doesn't appeal to you, there is a way to get a taste of the Cabane à Sucre experience without leaving the city limits. In its 10th year located in the maple forest of the Bois de Collonges in Sillery, the Cabane à Sucre du Parc offers an enjoyable day out and a festive atmosphere. There you can tour a real working sugar shack, complete with sap bubbling and steaming away in the pans. And you can get your sweet fix either by taste testing the taffy on snow or purchasing some maple butter or syrup. This is as authentic as it gets without being obliged to drive 20 minutes or so outside Quebec City. As the winter is long, cold, and gray here, a visit to the Cabane à Sucre is just the thing to help warm your spirit and get you through the final stretch before the signs of spring start appearing. Cabane à Sucre du Parc de Bois de Collonges is located at 1215 Grande Allée West, Quebec.
Thank you for listening to the Life in Quebec podcast. For more news, commentary, editorials, and opinion, visit lifeinquebec.com/podcast.